This is what I want you all to see.
I'm really glad that when we're done with this, we're going to have a definitive ranking, and no one is going to have
definitive.
Any
oh no, I'm sharing the wrong
arguments.
thing. Those are my notes. This is great because all right. So basically, while I'm figuring this out, so what we're going to do is go over the big differences that we all have, and I've highlighted a few of them here. I have our rankings here, and I've highlighted a few of the teams I want to spend some more time on. We've only got an hour. There's 30 teams. There's a few teams we don't really need to spend a lot of time on. The Athletics are bad. The Rockies are bad. Does it matter if it's last or second to last? I don't think so. So that's all we need to talk about them. But we're going to create our consensus rankings here. It seems like, for the most part, we all generally have the same sort of like top 4, top 5 in various orders. You guys had the Dodgers number 1. I had the Braves number 1. I think you could argue either. Honestly, I won't go crazy about the Dodgers being number 2 instead of number 1. Certainly with all the additions they made. But real quick, any of these top 5, Braves, Dodgers, Astros, Orioles. I've got the Rangers a little bit lower than you do, Jake, and so does Chris. Any of those in like the top 5 there, anything you specifically want to call out? And I think number 1, do we want to go Dodgers since you guys went Dodgers? And I don't really care either way. If you guys want to go Dodgers number 1, we can do that. You go with that?
Yeah. The reason I have the Dodgers over the Braves is because I think it comes down to the pitching staffs, and I think the Dodgers have more depth in general. And I think the Dodgers have a risky starting pitching rotation, but risky in a different way than the Braves do. Like the Braves are risky because they're old, right? They have Sale, they have Morton, and then their 5th starter is Elder, who
Bryce Elder
is only old in name. But I still don't really trust him, and I don't really trust their depth behind him. Maybe Smith Shaver comes up and he's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the Braves have a riskier rotation, and they might just have to win a lot of 7-5 ball games.
Yeah, Dodgers for me. I mean, for this and 24 power rankings, that means different things to different people, right? Like, at the end of 2024, like, I just know the Dodgers are going to be all in. Like, if someone gets hurt, like, maybe they go out and get Corbin Burns, and that's like, the Dodgers are going to be all in. The Braves, I mean, they're fantastic, and they're going to be there too. So yeah, you're picking 1As, 1Bs, 1Cs here. I guess for me, like, the Dodgers last off season, like, they clearly, for a year, I was saying, like, and we were saying, they didn't bring in a guy last year, and it was like, wait, the Dodgers, they still won a ton of games. This year they go out, they get Shohei, they get Yamamoto, they get Glass now, like, and they're probably not done. Like, this is the team that got Scherzer and Trey Turner at the deadline. So it's just the Dodgers year for me.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to see us get some guys? We'll get some guys.
And just defer all of their money.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's. I mean, they're both. I think both the Dodgers and the Braves are stacked teams. I think going 1-2, I think that makes sense. Number 3, both Jake, you and me had the Astros. Chris, you had the Orioles, which, look, I love that. I absolutely love that. Why Orioles 3rd? Yeah, that's right.
I'm pandering to the host because I assume there's a winner here. And I want to be the winner. So yeah, no,
yeah,
I think there's only a small handful of teams in the league where you can go, okay, bullpen check, rotation check, lineup check, and I think the Orioles are on that short list, and they have depth. They have, like, they more than any other team can plug holes with wildly talented kids. And I just think that is a huge advantage in this day and age. And it also gives them the potential to make any deal they want to. Like, at any given time, they could trade for Cease, they could trade for Burns. It's just a matter of how much pressure do they feel to go all in. So I think
it also depends on what they're being asked for. The rumors out there that the White Sox are asking for, like, everything and then a little more for Cease. And so, but I agree. They do have, in fact, they have a massive log jam in the middle infield of prospects between, Jackson Holiday, who might be up this year. I don't think he's up right away. His bat's way ahead of his glove. I think he might spend a little more time down in AAA. But you got Holiday, you got Joey Ortiz, Connor Norby, Jordan Westberg, obviously Gunnar Henderson. Like there's and then Jorge Mateo and Ramon Urias are still on the team, not necessarily
Cowser,
must
Kierstead.
start.
Just the list goes on.
Yeah, there's a ton. So they have a lot to work with. Kobe Mayo, they have a whole lot to work with. I will say, one of the reasons I rank the Orioles a little bit lower, as much as I love them dearly, they have a great team or rotation specifically. I think pitching is the weakness because they have a great rotation if everything goes perfectly and nobody gets hurt. Because as soon as they lose, I think Tyler Wells should be in the rotation personally. We'll see if the Orioles also think that. They seem to like to have him in the bullpen. But if John Means goes down, Bradish, Rodriguez, Kremer, and Wells, those are the 5. Any of those guys go down, and it's like, okay, who's starting? And it's not great. It's like, oh, Cole Irvin, or maybe they're like, DL Hall might get a shot. Like, if everyone is healthy, that starting 5 is pretty solid, but I don't think that's something you can necessarily count on. Now, this is all assuming they don't make a move, but they might. But anyways, all of that is to say, I love your confidence, and I hope that you're right. For our third ranking, Jake and I had Astros. Chris, are you good with Astros there?
I'm good with it. I had them 4th. It's not too big a leap.
Cool, yeah, and I guess here's my thing to kind of tie it together, because I think we'll talk some Texas Rangers in a minute too. I'm just completely biased. No. I was laughing though. The fantasy guys were finishing up, and the Orioles fan, his guy he wanted on every team was Austin Hayes. The Cardinals guy, he wanted Goldschmidt on every team. So it's always hard to tell when that actually kicks in your core there. I think the Orioles talent wise, absolutely. Like you guys mentioned, lineup wise, they got a depth of another team. One of my favorite Yankees teams in recent history, the 2018 Yankees, they were just replacing everyone, and they had 2 lineups at one point. It was a fun Yankees team. But for this, it kind of goes back to what I said about the Dodgers. The Dodgers, I know, Glasnow could get hurt, and Yamamoto might get banged up, and they'll go trade for another pitcher, and maybe Kershaw's there giving one final run. The Orioles, I'm just worried they're never going to put the chips all in on the Cease or whoever it is, because I think they're like a lot of the teams, and sorry, Mariners fans, close your ears, but that 54% quote from Dipoto, the Orioles are trying to do sustained winning, that I'm wondering if they're ever going to put their chips all in. And no Bautista this year. I know Kimbrel's still out there twirling it, but let's say Dirty Craig has a bad April, the Orioles could be feeling a little different than last year's upstart Orioles. And the Houston Astros won the West last year, and they had a bad year. They didn't win at home. If the Astros just win at home next year, they win their division again. And I feel I don't want to do too much cross sports stuff here, but the Rangers, they got to get their respect. They won it, and talk about another team willing to go all in, like Scherzer, DeGrom, all that. But I feel this year's Astros team is going to have a little bit of 22 Golden State Warriors. Everyone kind of thought the Warriors, a lot of NBA people are doing should we still be talking about them? This is the last year of Bregman's contract and the last year of Altuve's contract, and maybe the last year of Verlander's contract, although, he'll just get money from the Mets and come back. I think this year's Astros team, they just watched the Texas Rangers win, and they've got that going on. To slide the Astros down, I can't do it.
Sure. I get that. And they're still a great team. And to your point about the Orioles going all in, something I always like to bring up whenever we talk about that is there was a quote I saw when I was reading the book Winning Fixes Everything, where they were talking about Sig Mejdal, who's now with the Orioles. And Sig Mejdal, there was an executive quoted in the book who said Sig Mejdal's philosophy is that the way you build a winning team is from the bottom up with prospects and prospects only. He loves hoarding prospects. In fact, he was against going out and getting Justin Verlander, which obviously the Astros did in 2017. So now that Sig Mejdal's with the Orioles, I would not be shocked if a lot of that philosophy is sort of translating over, where the Orioles are we believe that hoarding prospects and building with prospects rather than making trades and getting free agents is the way to succeed. That could be why they have been hesitant to move some of their prospects. I wouldn't be shocked if some of that philosophy has moved over. So to your point, I think, yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if we see the Orioles hesitant to make gigantic signings or big flashy trades or whatever. So, but anyways, moving on to our number 4 spot. I've got the Orioles at number 4. Jake, you've got the Rangers. Chris, you had the Astros. So let's say we good with how do we feel about Orioles at number 4? Or do we want to, Jake, you want to make an argument for Rangers or Phillies at number 4?
I'm not gonna fight it. Like, as you can tell from my rankings, I give playoff respect their due, I suppose. And maybe this is a little bit in my AL East. Like, we'll see when we get to the Blue Jays. But like, I just dealt with a Blue Jays team that their fan base was loud and excited for a couple years, and they're still waiting for any playoff success. That, like, the Orioles shouldn't be graded on their playoffs last year. Talent-wise, I think the spot's probably right. But, could we be at pitcherless, PitchCon next year, all of us donating a ton of money, saying
so
that the Orioles still haven't really done something? There's a lot of kids, but talent-wise, they're incredible.
Yeah, I think that all makes sense. Now, next 2, I think, is going to be Rangers or Phillies. It just depends on what order we want to put them in. My argument for putting Phillies over Rangers, I have concerns about the Rangers starting rotation until Scherzer and DeGrom are back. Yes. That rotation is going to be a little sketchy. I mean, Eovaldi is good, but then when you get deeper into that rotation, I just wonder, we're looking at DeGrom and Scherzer coming back in August or something like that. So you've got, Eovaldi, John Gray, I think both good. Then you've got Heaney, Dunning, and Cody Bradford probably. And obviously Dane Dunning looked pretty good for some good stretches last year. I don't personally have the confidence that he can, be honestly a sub-4 ERA pitcher all the time. That is what concerns. If, once DeGrom and Scherzer are back, then, that rotation plus that lineup's ridiculous. And obviously the offense in Texas is fabulous. So that would be my argument. I still think the Phillies, now that they have Nola back, I think it's still a really rock solid team, top to bottom, offensively and from the pitching perspective. But what do you guys think?
I think where you rank the Rangers is just a kind of it shows how you view these power rankings. Because if you view them as an opening day power rankings, like I did, you're going to ding them a little bit. If you view this as who's most likely to make the World Series, who's going to be the best in September, then you bump them up a bit because their pitching staff is going to get better as the year goes on.
That's true. That's true. It's a good point.
Those pitching concerns are real. I'm not sold on their bullpen either. And this is another team with very little depth. I'm not sure who's on the way, who's coming to fortify this staff. It's got to come externally.
Yeah,
that's true. That's a good point.
Not much to argue with you guys about. I guess if my lame sports guy version would be, we just haven't seen a baseball team repeat. So that does that ding Texas a little bit while the Phillies have been knocking at the door? The fact that we're at that point, wherever you guys want them.
I got you. All right, so we'll go Orioles, Phillies, Rangers. So next, I've got the Diamondbacks. We've got Jake, you've got the Yankees. Chris, you also have the Yankees. I am the highest on the Diamondbacks of the three of us. So I'm curious to talk about this a little bit. Do you guys think that their World Series trip was sort of they got hot at the right time and they're not necessarily that good? They're a good team, obviously, but they're not a World Series contender. And also, does the signing of Jock Peterson influence? Obviously, I think these rankings were done before that. Does that influence your ranking at all?
I guess. Hey, I was gonna pass him off, but I've kind of been an adopted son of the snake, so I'll go. I mean the Jock signing helps. I don't want to pretend like that. That's probably the difference in the two spots in the standings.
Sure.
I love the Erod signing. Has Fott made the leap? Is he gonna have 30 starts in a 3.4 ERA, or he had 18 starts in a 5.72. I think they caught a little bit of the sauce last year, and I think Arizona fans will admit that. It's just, what is the next step? And I actually love their offseason, man. Like, you go look at some of those playoff lineups, and you're like, it felt like they got thin pretty quickly. And now with Jock and Eugenio, like right now, Fangraphs has Lourdes Gurriel Jr. in their 8-hole. Like, I love that. But yeah, I mean, with the Dodgers looming, like, it's like that team is gonna win the division. The only time they haven't in over a decade, the Giants put, what was it, a $107 wins on the board? Like, I think the Diamondbacks, who could be really good this year, I don't know if they're even daydreaming about that. So I don't know. I mean, I love them. I hope we're building on it. Corbin Carroll is a superstar of superstores. But yeah, I don't know. I think last year had a little bit of magic, and I wonder what's next.
Yeah, that's fair. Chris?
It's the lineup that gets me a little bit. I don't trust Alek Thomas. I don't trust Perdomo. I don't think Suarez is what he was, and that's a ballpark that depresses home runs, which is the only thing Suarez does well besides take a walk every now and then.
Yeah.
And I just, I mean, I do think they got hot. I don't think they were the best team in the National League last year. I don't think they're going to be the best team in the National League this year. Like in a broader power rankings sense, like, so I've got them at right after the Rays and before the Cubs. I think that's a tier cutoff. Like, the Diamondbacks are the last team that I trust to be like good, and everywhere below that I think is a big glob of like 80 true talent teams that could win 85 or 75, and I wouldn't bat an eye. I feel pretty confident that the Diamondbacks are going to be, at least like 85 wins or so.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So, you know what? I'm actually good. I had the Yankees ranked as the next team under the Diamondbacks. I'm good with putting the Yankees here. I think adding Soto obviously is huge for them. I think adding Verdugo is helpful. They still need some pitching help, I think. Adding Stroman is whatever, in my opinion. I mean, good, not a bad thing. But I could see, I think Yankees as the next one makes sense for me. If you would like, Jake, to have a moment with your team to talk about
it's always weird that this life has led me to be considered an expert on any sort of thing like this. But this is the one place I might feel the most confident. It's hard to be logical as a true Yankee fan, but they added one of the most generational hitters ever. Juan Soto is on the Yankees. Him and Judge back to back. Like, when I get a bored moment, I just kind of look at him and Judge's stats and just like, wow, look at this, like lefty righty, like this, a chance to be something truly dynamic. Anthony Rizzo, before he had a concussion, he had like a high 8s OPS last year, and then he was one of the worst hitters in baseball for 2 months, which that's a whole nother discussion. I won't go there. Verdugo, the lefty contact hitter that they've been looking for in the lineup. Like, should Volpe take a jump of some sort? Giancarlo Stanton's a bonus piece right now. Like, the lineup was so bad. It was brutal to watch last year. It really was. And they should be good with a chance for more. The pitching, like you said, Cole won the Cy Young. He's Garrett Cole. I can't promise you a 2.63, but you're going to get a pretty darn good effort every fifth day. Like Carlos Rodon, a 6.85 ERA in 14 starts. It's hard to be worse than that. Like, you can't, you can if you wanted to.
Cut to a shot of Patrick Corbin being like challenging.
Right. Former Yankee great, if you remember his best man's wedding speech.
Oh my God.
So with all of that, the Yankees somehow won 82 games last year. That a lot of the things I mentioned, it's only up from there. So the division's still tough. We'll get to the Rays in a little bit. I don't have them winning 99 again. But in the Yankees' worst season in the past 30 years, they won 82 games. So, and like Juan Soto's generational. So you saw the passion kick in a little bit there. We are thin at pitcher. And I don't know what happens there. I think they're just going to fight till the deadline, but God, I'm really hoping for, even like give me like Ryu 1 year, 11 million. Like you give me that and I'll start to get hype.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I think definitely a lot of potential with the Yankees. So I'm good with having them right there in the 9 spot. How do we feel about the Diamondbacks there? It's kind of like split the difference between me and Jake. Chris, you're still a little lower. But
no, I'm good with it.
Put the Diamondbacks right there.
Right?
Yeah, it's a consensus. So next I had the Rays. Jake, you had the Rays a little bit lower. Chris, you had the Rays right around there. So I have Rays, Blue Jays. We could argue Blue Jays over Rays. In fact, Jake, it seems like you've got the Blue Jays pretty well above the Rays. What do you guys think? I feel like Blue Jays or Rays is the next team, one of the two.
I think the Rays, like, just looking at their roster and rotation, right? I'm like, this isn't that good of a team, but I can't get out of my head that it's the Rays.
So who knows?
Yeah, like they're gonna win. They're probably gonna win 90 games. Like but I don't want to rank them like that because they're running out. Like the lineup right now is Palacios, Siri, Caballero, and Pinto. Like that's like half their lineup. It's so bad. But yeah, I'm sure they'll manage. It'll look a lot better if they wind up with Caminero in there at some point. Like if it's just, I feel like they'll figure it out. If I was basing this just on, like, I'd probably have them probably between the Mariners and Cardinals, like a few spots lower, just based on like what I'm seeing on the page. But I just trust them at this point to figure it out. Ryan Pepiot for Cy Young.
I know. Yeah, I know. I think adding Pepiot
Not
actually
really.
could be. You heard it here first. And hold him to that. He put all your money bets on Pepiot for Cy Young and at Schwebsy if you lose a lot of money. Send all your hate mail. I think adding Pepiot is good, and especially with the Rays, who knows what he could turn into. I have some faith that Taj Bradley kind of figures things out a little bit. I hope. And then you've got Eflin, who was real good last year. Savale. So. Yeah, I agree. I think there's definitely some weaknesses, especially in that lineup. But like you said, for some reason, the Rays just kind of do it. That being said, I could see a good argument for the Blue Jays as well. They could really use to add a bat, but they're pretty solid, both rotation and lineup. Generally, not a whole bunch of huge holes.
Here's what I'll say. There's something to that Rays uni. Like my dark thought the other day is like, what would it take for me to think the Rays are going to be under 500? Like imagine what the Rays roster would have to look like for you to think they'll be under 500. Because I know you guys are talking about the lineup. That top 5 is sneaky strong for a traditional Rays lineup. I'm worried about their pitching. And this is where uniforms get really interesting because if you look at the Blue Jays pitching staff and you look at the Rays pitching staff, like tell me if I'm wrong, but I see like different leagues. Like the Jays, their bullpen right now, like Chad Green and Genesis Cabrera as your like 6th and 7th options out of the bullpen. Like I really like how they've built this pitching. For me, the Blue Jays, it's the lineup, and I don't think they're done. Like, I wonder if there's a Brandon Belt reunion or I still daydream the lefty that can break up Springer, Bichette, and Guerrero. And I don't know if they'll get that. So maybe I need to not daydream about that. But like the pitching talent on paper is mind blowing, but the Rays are going to have like a top 5 pen. So you have to brainwash yourself. I don't know.
Who will win, the names on the front of the jerseys or the names on the back of the jerseys?
It's impossible to know. And you make a good point about the Blue Jays bullpen because that is a rock solid bullpen. If you've got like Tim Meza, Yimi Garcia, Eric Swanson, Jordan Romano closing, like, and then you add in Genesis Cabrera, Chad Green. There's some really good options there behind a really solid. I mean, Gosman's great, obviously. Barrios is usually good. Bassett's good. Kikuchi was better last year than he has been in the past. Who knows if Alek Manoah maybe recaptures some of his skill from the past? Who knows? Yeah, I think that makes, and even down to the bottom of the lineup, like, Alejandro Kirk had a down year. There's obviously the chance he bounces back. Dalton Varsho, while he hit 220, still had 20 home runs, 16 steals. Like, that's, almost at a 2020 season. That's still rock solid. So, but we have to make a decision. Do we want to go Rays or Blue Jays next?
Hey, AL East guy, I've just seen it too many times. If I gun to my head, I'd take the Rays, and I know that's the opposite of my sheet, but like if I have to make that choice, I've just seen it every year. I know what I'm getting from them.
The Rays somehow defy expectations and do well, and the Blue Jays figure out a way to screw it up and collapse. The Buffalo Bills of Major League Baseball, figuring out a way. All right, next up. We've got next up in the 12 spot, I've got the Mariners. We've got a couple little higher. Brewers. You are, Jake, very high on the Brewers, much higher than both me and Chris. I'd be curious, what's your logic on putting them that much higher?
I love a little Milwaukee Seattle powwow here, because I might need you guys to walk me through it. I just think we've sprinted away from Milwaukee just because they were supposed to trade Corbin Burns, and they were supposed to trade Willy Adames. They didn't. Like, Corbin Burns is still their one. I kind of like what St. Louis did this year, but they were last and they won 71 games last year. The Pirates, I'm selling on them, man. Like that, I was excited for that team last year. I don't really know what happened. The Reds, I do like, and we'll talk about them in a minute. The Cubs, like, for me, the Chicago Cubs, we've done this whole thing, like they were in on Ohtani, and like the Cubs are back and they're going to be all in. Like, right now, Stroman was great for 3 months for them. Like, fantastic. Like, arguably one of the best pitchers in the National League. They brought in Imanaga. Let's see. I frankly don't know. But does that replace Stroman? Maybe. I know they like doing what they have in the bullpen, but it doesn't exactly jump off the sheet to you. And Cody Bellinger, who was their MVP, he's not back. So, like, even if he is, the Cubs won 83 games last year. The Brewers won 92. And all of those Brewers kids, they didn't play great last year. So you could spin that both ways, right? Like, hey, maybe this Brewers next young crop isn't everything they thought. But Frelick only got a chunk of a season. Garrett Mitchell was out forever. Chiriot gets the big contract. Like, Terang didn't do a ton last year. Weimer is currently listed on their bench. Like, he was one of their most exciting guys, and he had a 204 batting average. So if a couple of those young guys click to go with the guys on the Brewers, and I love the Hoskins signing, man. So I think when it was time to send over our lists, like, I've been kind of on, like, I like what the Reds are doing. If the Brewers do punch that Burns, Adames sell ticket, like, I'm all the way out. But we've been acting like they have, and they haven't. And they won the division last year, and they've got so much upside. And again, it's almost a team that we need to respect the front of the jersey a little more. Like, the Brewers ain't have a bad team in a while. So that's my Brewers thing. And just with Seattle, maybe that Dipoto 54% quote lives in my head. Maybe the second half of that lineup is living in my head, because and even like Mitch Garver, like, it could be a nice signing. It could also not be. Like, he's only played 100 games so many times that I don't know. I feel like Seattle had their window and is kind of blowing it, and that's really rude. And I feel bad for myself and my own Twitter mentions, because you love the pitching, obviously. But so I unloaded everything. Bring it back.
It's it's interesting. I kept looking at the Brewers and I kept saying they won so many games last year. Why am I so like just not excited by this team? And perhaps I was a little low on them. I think looking at that rotation, it is not nice rotation. I mean, Corbin Burns, assuming he stays, is great. Freddie Peralta is great. Wade Miley somehow figures out a way to be good. Country music superstar Colin Ray sometimes could be good. The offense, yeah, I like adding Hoskins. I don't know. There's just when I look at it, and I think you make a good point that there are a few young guys who could easily turn it on and kind of change the look of this lineup. But there's also the opportunity for them to do exactly what they did last year. And then you've got kind of like a pretty okay lineup. To your point about the Mariners, obviously, like you said, you love the pitching, and it is a great rotation. I think adding Mitch Haniger is interesting. Could be good. He has shown flashes. Luke Raley, hit about 250, 20 home runs, 14 steals. That's useful. And Garver, yeah. So for some reason, I think the strength of the rotation in Seattle is plus a pretty solid lineup is what sold me on them over the Brewers. But I could be convinced otherwise. Chris, what do you think?
I noticed that when I was putting this together, I noticed that something that really sours teams for me is like volume of players I have questions about in important spots, like rotation spots, lineup spots. Like I don't care too much if your bench is weak or if your 7 and 8 guys in the bullpen are weak, but it's just like the Brewers are like that lineup is so high variance. And I actually bumped them up a couple of spots once they signed Hoskins. I think I had them around 19 before that. Now I have them at 17. Like Frelick and Mitchell, I feel like could be good, but they both have huge glaring holes in that Frelick doesn't impact the ball and Mitchell strikes out 30% of the time. And Terang and Monasterio, like I feel like they just top out at okay. And then Churio, who knows, could be great right off the bat. He's 20. Who knows?
Yeah.
I would love it if he was awesome right off the bat, but that's just 5 huge question marks in a lineup. I just can't. And the rotation, Colin Ray and Joe Ross, we're relying on them.
Joe Ross
too
is
many
not,
question marks.
Joe Ross's biggest flaw is that he's bad at pitching. Yeah, that's definitely going to be rough.
And also something no one's mentioned: Stearns is gone, Counsell is gone.
Yeah.
I mean, do we attribute nothing of the Brewers' success to them? Because I feel like the organization as a whole has lost talent from the front office, and then the talent on the field isn't what it was last year, at least in like the rotation.
Yeah, I think all that makes sense. I think for our rankings, I think the next group that kind of we are talking about here is probably the Brewers. We're talking about the Mariners, and I would say throw the like Reds, Twins, Cubs. I think that's like in some order, that's the next tier almost. Personally, I would probably put, now that we've been talking about the Mariners a little bit, I almost might put the Reds ahead of the Mariners. Personally, I think there's a lot to like about the Reds. I think Ellie De La Cruz is going to continue to get better. You look at his PLV, his plate decision making, got a lot better as the year went on. And then you've got a pretty solid, Friedel McLean, Steer, Marte all look pretty good. They've added Candelario. They've added, Andrew Abbott could get better. Like there's a lot of potential on this Reds team. And even with a pretty young, inexperienced team that was, hot and cold at times, they still won 82 games. I think them, Twins, Mariners, I think are all kind of, and Brewers kind of all in the same group. What are you guys thinking about maybe the Reds or Twins? Again, hope that Correa and Buxton get better. Royce Lewis looks really special, but who knows with his health? Joe Ryan should get better. What are you guys thinking in that order, in that little group there?
I'll give you the team I like is the Reds. I teased that a little bit. Like that I think we're almost not respecting the name on the front of the jersey, because if there was another team that had this many young guys who look, the stats are crazy. Will Benson almost had a 500 slug in 329 play. Like literally, they have extras. Jake Fraley, like go look around at corner outfielders, and he's their last guy on the bench right now. Like if this was a different uniform team, if this was the Rays, we'd be like consensus World Series.
I was literally just thinking that. Yeah, I was just thinking. Imagine if the Rays had this team. Yeah,
just give him the title. Like the Hunter Green breakout will happen one of these years.
Yep.
Should there be questions about the pitching? Absolutely. I can daydream in the right way about it, and I've tried to find an AL Central team that'll dance with the Twins, and like I even daydream about the Tigers, and they're just not in the same category. It's kind of sad unless that Guardians pitching is sick. So I
never know. Yeah. All right. So let's say, are we good with? Go ahead, Chris. I was thinking we might go Reds as our next ranking, but yeah, go ahead, Chris.
You know what, Jake, you're making me feel bad about my Reds ranking, because I do agree with a lot of what you're saying. But I feel pretty strongly about the Twins being up here. Circling back to what I said before about teams with iffy players in too many spots, I think the Twins are like top to bottom solid. Like bench, lineup, bullpen, rotation. Like they got solid players at nearly every spot on the 25 man, and I think that's really valuable in a 162 game season.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I think Twins for sure are pretty good. So this is what I have written here. I've got Reds, Twins, and then maybe Brewers for the next three, and then maybe we're thinking, well, where do we feel about the Mariners? Because now it seems like I'm lowering the Mariners a bit. Maybe Mariners next, or how do we feel about Jake? We know you have Brewers over Mariners for sure. Chris, what do you think?
That's such a good pitching staff. I'm
yeah.
And Jake, you're right. Don't rile up the Mariners fans. I think the most hate that I've ever gotten on Twitter is when I gave Kelnick some guff for only hitting fastballs and breaking balls right down the middle for home runs in spring training. Sure, we're right on that one, Mariners fans. I'm baiting him right now. I'm asking for hate now.
Yeah. At Schwebsy on Twitter for all of your.
No, I'm okay with the Mariners here. I don't like the bottom of the order, but that is a really, really solid pitching staff, top to bottom.
Yeah, yeah. And then next, how are we feeling about the Cubs? I feel like that kind of makes sense for the next team on the list.
I'm really excited for everything in this to change over the next month, because there's still like 25 relevant free agents that need to sign.
I know.
Like if the Cubs sign Bellinger, how much higher are they here?
Yeah, that's a good
three
point.
Three spots higher. Like it's
yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I think the Cubs are solid, and I think that's it. There's some upside here in Bush and Morel. I'm really excited for a full year of Suzuki at full strength, I hope. But yeah, I think Bellinger, if they sign him, would put them over the top. But right now, like this is like the outside of Justin Steele, it's like a really, really mid rotation. There's a very little upside in the rotation. There's only a couple of relievers I'm excited about. Maybe, three maybe. I don't feel like there's a huge upside to this team, but I do think they're going to, probably get to mid 80s and wins.
If we didn't know how bad the Cardinals were last year, would you like the Cardinals or the Cubs more?
So that's the tough one, because so there's three teams last year that like everything went wrong. Like the Cardinals, the Padres, the Mets, who underperformed by like wild amounts. And it's hard placing them now, because that's so like recency bias is terrible. It just colors everything. So I think I had them. Yeah, I had them 2 spots apart, and especially with this glob in the middle here, that's basically nothing. They might as well be ranked the same.
Yeah.
Today I like the Cardinals more. I think the reason that I had the Cubs above them is because I expect more moves out of them. I expect at least like one major signing out of the Cubs, whether it's Chapman or Bellinger or something.
Yeah, I can see that. Actually, that's a good segue because I feel like Cardinals or Padres might be the next team here. Though I know Chris, you are way down on the Padres compared to me and Jake. Uh, why so down on the Padres? Let me give my pitch. I think the lineup is still pretty solid. It's a bit top heavy, but it's really solid. Rotation does look a little sketchy without Blake Snell, but I mean, Musgrove's good. Hopefully Darvish gets better. Adding Michael King is interesting. Maybe Randy Vasquez turns out to be something, or maybe Luis Patino or Pedro Avila. Who knows? But I mean, that is still, with some really good hitters in that lineup, I could still see them. You want to talk about a team that figures out a way to screw things up? It's the Padres, but I do think there's definitely some potential there. What do you think, Chris?
I think Stars and Scrubs is a perfectly viable fantasy strategy. I do not think it's a perfectly viable baseball strategy. There's just too many. There's too many really bad players on this 25-man right now. Like their number 4 starter, Pedro Avila, right now.
Yeah,
they're like Jake Cronenworth was terrible last year, and he's their 5-hole hitter. Probably some bounce back there. But do we trust Campusano yet? Matthew Batten, Cal Mitchell, Jose Azocar. Like the top 4 is incredible. It's so good, but you need more than 4 good hitters in a lineup.
Yeah, that's true. It is very, very top heavy. All right, how do we feel about perhaps the Cardinals as the next team here?
I love Chris's approach, man. Like that's if you're looking, because again, power rankings is brutal. Like, holes wise, oh my God, the Padres. There's a couple names on there that you're starting. If we could give out incompletes, because man, this bargain bin free agency that's about to happen, like the Padres have to be every guy. Like, how good would Jock Peterson have been for them? Go Snakes. Yeah. I don't know. I guess I was a little bullish on the Padres. Know what it was? I think Tatis goes again this year, and we're all like, "Oh yeah, I
buy that.
You are him." But as a team, I don't know.
I buy that, but I also think if you swapped out 2023 Acuna and put him on this team, I still don't think they'd be that good.
That's fair. I think that's fair. So I think our next kind of group that we would be talking about after the Cardinals would be sort of, Tigers, Mets. Chris, you have the Red Sox up much higher than me and Jake do, but maybe and Guardians are all kind of in that mix. Giants, maybe. What are we thinking for, maybe the next 2? I'm looking at our rankings. I'm thinking maybe Mets might be the next one. That would make sense.
I thought I was being like not a homer and like conservative about the Mets ranking, but here I am higher than anyone else by like 3-4 spots.
Well, the thing is like it's a decent lineup. I think adding, Bader and Wendell and Taylor, they're all kind of whatever. The rotation's good. Quintana's fine. Senga's good. Severino, I like the potential that he adds to that rotation. Sean Manaea, Adrian Hauser, whatever. I don't really care. But I think adding Severino is really interesting. So, yeah, I think there is some potential to the Mets. But yeah, definitely some holes in the lineup, I think.
I talk about all this like having too many iffy players at too many 25-man spots, and then I go and rank the Mets like this. I can't. I can't be impartial. I just can't.
It's hey, name in the front of the jersey kicks in a little bit, like the Mets expectations, like a team like last year, and we all kind of get nervous. This has a chance to be like a punchy good Mets team, right? Like, I feel like McNeil does kind of the every other year thing. Lindor with the casual 30-30 last year. Pete with the casual 46 in like a down season. Like, I don't know, this Mets team will have some fight. I guess at this part of the list, I was starting to think like how are their wins going to look? Like maybe not if these teams played 7 games, because if the Mets and Guardians played 7, maybe the Mets take 5 out of 7, but the Guardians are going to win a lot of games, and their young pitching, man, like I think they've got like a Mariners argument, whether it's division or whether it's, the top of the lineup, whatever it is. Bieber, McKenzie, Issa Bibe on Twitter, Tanner Bybee, Logan Allen, and Gavin Williams. All of those guys shoved last year. I know Tristan was hurt. But this rotation, and they kind of stopped all these guys at the end of last year because they kind of hit their pitching limits. In the AL Central, this team's going to win a lot of games. Almost nothing went right for them offensively. Jose Ramirez will be there at the end of the year. That I guess at this point, with what the Mets are dealing with in their division, what some of the other teams are dealing with in their division, I wouldn't be shocked if we look at one point and it's July 4th and it's Cleveland's got the best starting pitching ERA. That would be my sell or my pitch for them.
Yeah, I actually think that's a great pitch, and it's kind of convincing me to maybe put Guardians here and then maybe the Mets after. If we're how are we feeling about that?
I don't hate it.
Okay.
I
Cool.
like the Guardians. The way they put together their lineup just drives me absolutely insane. It's how many hit tool first no thump guys can you have? It drives me absolutely insane. What year is it?
Well, I mean, you've got Jose Ramirez and Josh Naylor there in the middle, but yeah. Roster Resource right now has, Ramon Laureano as their number 5 hitter.
Crazy.
Which is
love Bo Naylor. Excited for a full year of Bo Naylor.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right. We got 11 minutes. Like I said, I think the bottom tier is not really something we have to talk a whole lot about. Sorry, all those A's fans watching. Just kidding. You're not watching. You don't exist. Next up, I'm kind of thinking, all right, Chris, make your Red Sox pitch. You have them way higher. We're kind of getting to where we should sort of talk about them versus the Tigers versus the Marlins.
All right.
So what's your pitch for the Red Sox?
A question for the room. Do you think they're appreciably worse than they were last year?
Do I think they're worse than they were? No, I don't think they're worse.
They had a basically dead even run differential last year. I don't think they're worse. I think they're roughly 500 true talent, and that's where I stuck them.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, I think adding O'Neill and Grissom is interesting. I mean, both could be pretty good, but I mean, the floor is the basement for O'Neill. He can also be really horrible. And who knows, Trevor Story. Hopefully, he kind of turns things around. So it's they need a lot of things to go right. The rotation, I mean, Brian Bello, however it's pronounced.
Bello.
Bello. I'm confusing the first name and I'm saying the last name wrong. I think he's got potential to be great. Cutter Crawford, we'll see, Lucas Giolito. So yeah, there's definitely some potential in there. I do think they have improved the team. I don't know that they've improved the team immensely, but I understand. I get the argument.
My only punch back on that would be Justin Turner was really good for them. Duvall had some stretches. Paxton was actually kind of solid. Sale was solid. That I don't know. I believe in Lucas Giolito. That ballpark is tough. Coming off a year when you gave up, was it 41 homers? So I don't know. The pitching just horrifies me. I think you're actually right in what you're saying. I think the Red Sox could end up around 500, but I don't think there's too much of a ceiling or a floor either way. I think that's just how this team is built.
Yeah.
I think I'm probably unreasonably high on the Pivetta, Bello, Crawford trio. I really like all three of them. So that probably contributed to this because I look at that rotation. I'm I like all these guys.
Okay.
All right, so here's what I'm actually thinking is maybe the next team, and that might be the Marlins. I think you want to talk about a good rotation. That's a really solid rotation there with Luzardo Perez. Braxton Garrett can be very good depending on, how things are working. Cabrera obviously has loads of potential if he can throw strikes. They have a pretty solid but not incredible lineup, though. I mean, you've got Jake Berger in there who is crushing balls. So. How do we feel? I'm thinking maybe Marlins next. Anyone got strong opposition to that?
The only
I'm so
team
anti-Marlins, but it's a glob.
I'm sneaky anti-Marlins too. The vibes just feel off. Have we mentioned the Giants at all? Like, where are you guys with them? Because
So
I
I've
think I
got
was
yeah.
Giants over Marlins.
Yeah, you've got the Giants higher than both of us. I think the Giants are super interesting. I think offense is pretty okay. I think adding Jung Ho Lee could definitely help. Rotation, you've got Logan Webb, who's great. I'm super interested to see what Jordan Hicks as a starting pitcher turns out to be. You got Robbie Ray coming back probably mid-season. Who knows if and when, who knows when Alex Cobb comes back. So yeah, I think I actually might be a little bit low on the Giants. I think they're in that group like Giants, Red Sox, Marlins, Tigers. I think Tigers are worth talking about here. Are kind of like the next glob of teams that would go here. So let's figure out that order. What do you guys think?
Oh,
So I'm thinking
we've got about 5 minutes. We got to lighten
I
down
know.
this.
Let's figure that out. Wait, you know what? We know the bottom, right? Do we care? A's, like
Yeah,
Rockies.
my elevator pitch for why the Giants aren't that good is just that the ceiling is so low. This is just such a low upside group, and there's like 3 hitters in that lineup that I really expect to like clear like I don't know like a 750 OPS.
My Giants joke that I run out there is their lineup is 6 hole hitters. Like there's 6 guys
Yeah.
that you're like, hey, I'd love him in my 6 hole.
Yep.
And I don't know. I guess I still have Giants magic in my head, and I just wonder if there's going to be like, let's say there's a point where they stay around 500 and Robbie Ray's coming back and maybe Kyle Harrison's a guy, and maybe Cobb comes back. I feel like there's going to be a point of this season where we have to have like do we need to like respect the Giants, but that the division and they believe in the front of their jersey a lot more than I think they should.
Yeah, I think the low ceiling thing is definitely a very good point. And I realized we actually forgot to include the Padres in our consensus rankings. I kind of slotted them in right above the Mets. How do we feel about that, or do we want to put them lower?
I think it's fair to forget them.
Yeah, we go Guardians, Padres. I mean, I feel like this is our bottom, just so we can get that out of the way. A's, Rockies, Nats, White Sox in some order. Is like that's the bottom 4. I think the Tigers are definitely super interesting. I could be convinced Red Sox over Tigers. Tigers definitely has some holes in the offense, but Torque and Carpenter, they look good and could get better. So could Riley Green, obviously. They added Marcana, which is kind of sort of interesting. Tarek Skubal is great. I think Kenta Maeda should be good. Jack Flaherty might be able to be decent. Like I think that's a pretty halfway decent team right there. I think I could be convinced in Red Sox over them, or what do you guys think of this glob right here? Marlins, Tigers, Red Sox, Giants.
I mean, I already gave my pitch on the Red Sox. I like the Tigers. I think they're building a team the way that like I feel like a real rebuild is supposed to go in most people's heads. It's like very, very like linear progressive growth. And I think we're probably going to see another year of that. I think they're going to be a little bit better than last year, and they've got good reinforcements on the way. I like what the Tigers are doing over a long-term outlook.
Yeah.
I'm also a sneaky Tigers guy. It's just scary. They need Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson to be really good, but they could be. And like wasn't there a time last year or maybe it was 2 years ago that the Tigers like had their whole like this was supposed to be the Tigers window and their whole rotation was hurt, and now it's like, okay, Skubal's kind of a guy. If Matt Manning's anything like Matt Manning, I kind of know what Maeda's going to give me, I think at least. And then you have options like in that Central. I've bought a little Tiger stock this year. I'm not happy about it, but I have.
Yeah. So are we cool with this order right here? Marlins, Tigers, Red Sox. We want to boost, maybe put the Marlins down lower.
I'm punching air at Red Sox below Marlins. So
we could do something like that. I just put that. That's cool.
All right.
And then
Ben,
Giants there.
Oh
yeah, go ahead.
I want to ask the room one question before Nick comes here and kicks us out. Is there anyone in that bottom 7 group that you guys can see taking a leap?
I could say so. I was actually about to talk about the Royals. I think the Royals are sort of kind of interesting. I also think the Pirates as well. So my pitch for the Royals, I think Vinny P hopefully is better. Same with MJ Melendez. Obviously Bobby Witt's awesome. Sal Perez is great. They added Hunter Renfroe. That rotation of Cole Reagans and Michael Wacha, who turns in a pretty solid season, but is the most boring guy. People don't like to talk about him because he's not super flashy, but solid. Seth Lugo. That could be a pretty interesting rotation. I don't know. I think the Royals could be something, or the Pirates. You've got O'Neal Cruz back. Hopefully, Ke'Bryan Hayes will be better. Brian Reynolds is good. They added Rowdy Tellez. Rotation's kind of okay, so that's really where their weakness is. They added Martin Perez and Marco Gonzalez, which is, I don't know, whatever. But I think of the bottom group, yeah, I think it's like Royals, Pirates are the two that I think could really potentially surge up a bit.
I go Royals, and that's making me talk myself out of the Tigers because I think we'll just end up, kind of with a big exhale at the end of the year. But yeah, I mean, I like to dream about baseball magic happening. I don't know, Nelson Velasquez, sure, he had a 586 slug last year. Why not, dude? Bobby Witt Jr. MVP type season. The Pirates are scaring me, and I know they're near the bottom. This Rockies team has like worst Rockies team ever type potential.
Yeah,
it's rough.
Ever.
Yeah. I mean, if you wanted to say the Rockies are the worst team in baseball instead of the A's, I wouldn't argue with you. But yeah, I think okay.
Hey guys.
Hey Nick.
Hey, that was fantastic.
We're not done yet. We want to take the next hour.
Yeah, there it is. So a couple things really quickly. I think the A's are not the worst team, and they're not even like I think the White Sox, Rockies, Nationals easily, because that I don't know. I'm a believer of the young teams getting better over time, especially when you have so many pitching options. I think that the A's have. They're going to come up, and the White Sox are just like, what are we going to do? The Nationals are, what are we going to do? It's like literally Mackenzie Gore and DJ Hurts, and that's it. Sorry, Josiah Gray, but like literally that's it. So, and the Rockies are, so the Tigers are underrated here. The Tigers, I feel like should be a little bit higher because of Jackson Jobe. Also, Ty Madden's also in the wings there. We have the younger hitters, I think, get better as well.
Casey Mize coming back at some point.
Okay, I'm not going to do that one. Sorry, Neil Vita, but not going to happen.
Mize
guys. There we go. I'm looking forward to that show. Scroll up a little bit. I can't remember. I want to make sure I saw the top 15 here. Let's see. Reds are way too high. Get him out of here. Get him out of here, Reds.
No way.
Get him out of here. That pitching staff is so volatile and ridiculous.
It sounds like you like my rankings. I think we have a winner.
I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
How many AL Central lineups could you make out of the Reds?
I mean, really, you have one lineup across all the AL Central, right? So
the AL Central lineup is the Twins, yeah,
right. So there you go. I don't know. I mean, otherwise, you guys cut this. This was fantastic. And it really bothers me that Hader is such an obvious signing for the Astros, and it's like they're the third best, and it's clear that that's the case. Oh, God.